have created many, many wealthy people around the world. There still are skeptics, but one thing that we've noticed as the value of cryptocurrencies keep on increasing is that the demand for safer options for storage of your cryptocurrencies have only become more important. With exchanges being hacked, wallets maybe not being safe, there's plenty of room for people to come up for that next layer to secure your cryptocurrencies. We have some evangelists from around the world joining us for this final panel of the day, which we're thrilled to have. Whenever they're mic'd up, they can feel free to come on down. And as we've noticed that more and more people are deciding to keep their cryptocurrencies in HODL as prices have been going up, this panel will give us some suggestions on how to sheetle your cryptocurrency positions.
Microphone or lanyard? Oh my God. It's the last panel of the day. Hey everybody, how's it going? Yeah. Yeah. Let's get that blood going. My name is Max Keiser. I am part of the winner of the crypto lottery that happened in 2011. Started buying at $1. So, see ya. Oh, that's right. No, I have to do some work. Well, I like to do some work every now and then. You know, it's fun to meet all these people. And so this is a fantastic panel. And I've already lost the program. Does anyone have a copy of the program?
Right there up on the wall.
Well, as you can tell, myself and my gorgeous wife, Stacy, we have Heisenberg Capital. You can find that on Twitter at Heisenberg Cap. And we have many startup investments in the space. And Jose Rodriguez, we know from Bitso. He's the largest exchange in Latin America now. We met him when he only had 1 Bitcoin. And now he practically owns Venezuela. Next, we have Alena Vranova. She is the founder of Trezor. Anyone know Trezor? You probably have a Trezor. You store your Bitcoin in Trezor in a cold storage. If you keep it on an exchange, A, you're dumb. B, you're broke. With Trezor, it solves all those problems. Trezor. Next, we have Hartej. Sawhney, I met him recently in Toronto with Hosho. We're going to learn a lot more about Hosho. It's a fantastic company. And last but not least, Jeremy Welch, who is the CEO of Casa. So Casa is another cold storage solution that is gaining incredible traction in the family office business now, because family offices have this problem that if somebody croaks, they don't know where the private keys are. All right? Am I being too blunt? Raise your hand if I'm being too blunt. Okay? Okay, this is good. All right, so this is a discussion on cryptocurrency breach protection. So I guess we can just get right into it. Is that a good idea?
Yes, I would like to get into this by showing a photo. They're supposed to go to the photo of how we do security in crypto land. And some of you, Jeremy Welch here of Casa knows this guy, Jameson Lopp. That's how he does security, and it's no joke.
This is old school.
Max and I, so we have Heisenberg Capital, and just as investors, like a lot of people in the audience are investors and looking for where to put their money. And so we've been in cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, it was only back then, 2011. And, I had lots of Bitcoin on exchanges that used to exist and disappeared, or somebody ran off with all the Bitcoin you deposited on the exchange, or you lost it on some hard drive somewhere, and it didn't really matter because you're like, oh, $200 worth, 200 Bitcoin, not too much, whatever. And then, of course, then there was only one exchange left, and that was Mt. Gox, and then that exploded. So Max and I invested a lot in many exchanges like Kraken, Shapeshift, Bitfenix, Bitso. We started to invest in what we personally needed as holders of Bitcoin and buyers and sellers. And then 2017 happened, and suddenly, Bitcoin hit 20,000, and you're looking through all your old hard drives, and you're like, God damn it, where did I put all those Bitcoin, and what happened to all that stuff? And all our friends started walking around with guys that look like this, and we're like, well, maybe we need to think about security, and how do we secure all this stuff we have? What is, so this is the introduction to this panel, because Max and I are investors, and as well as TV presenters, but we're interested in learning from these guys as well.
Right. So you mentioned Jeremy Lopp, who is an advisor for
Jameson Lopp.
Jameson Lopp. I'm thinking I got Jamie Dimon on the mind.
Max has been at Consensus all week and hasn't gone to sleep yet. So just the fact that he's going to mess up everybody's name.
Yeah, that's just okay. So Jeremy Welch, he's the founder and CEO of Casa, and Jameson Lopp is an advisor on Casa, and in fact, we also are investors in Casa as well.
Yes.
So let's start off with Jeremy. So I guess the best thing is to have the four panelists kind of introduce their where they are, their product, et cetera. So,
yes.
So why don't we begin with Jeremy? So hit it.
Sure. So Casa is the best personal key system on the planet, and we are talking about managing personal cryptographic keys. We are focused entirely on the high net worth individual and family office market today. Although we are developing products for a much broader group. We actually make use of the Trezor products and other hardware wallets, and we built a multi-signature system to allow you to have multiple people sign off on transactions, keep track of all of those, but you can hold the money personally. You don't have to hold it on an exchange. It is a cold wallet, but it is customized in a way where you can have these multiple sign-offs from different people in your office, different family members, et cetera.
And then quickly, I'll move along, but just the business model is subscription, correct?
It is. So it's $10,000 a year, and it is a subscription model.
And the market is $500,000 and up is your target market.
That's right.
And okay, let's now speak with Hartej over at Hosho. So just introduce what Hosho is all about.
Yeah. So hi, my name is Hartej Sawhney. I'm the co-founder of Hosho.io. Hosho, the word itself means security in Japanese. I found that by going to Google Translate and typing in the word guarantee. And if you type in English to Japanese, the word Hosho shows up. And then it says to receive a sense of security. And then I called about 15 Japanese friends and said, Hosho. And they were like, why are you saying things to me? Like, please, what does this mean? And eventually I came to the conclusion this word means security, and our vision was that someone needs to focus on blockchain security. And so my co-founder and our background is in both fintech and cybersecurity. And so Hosho is the global leader in blockchain security. We started with technical audits of smart contracts. We saw that more and more people are going to be writing smart contracts on an array of blockchains. We're agnostic to any blockchain, private or public. And someone needs to do a technical audit, a line-by-line code review of this smart contract to make sure it does what the white paper or the source of truth says it's supposed to do, and to make sure that there's no security vulnerabilities. We publish a audit report and place a cryptographic sign of approval on the actual code. And if that code is changed, we ask for a re-audit. And so we publish these audit reports and share them with investors and exchanges. Exchanges are the ones who actually read line by line our audit reports the most. Investors want to scroll to the bottom and say, is it done?
Just like a good housekeeping seal of approval, right?
Yeah,
Or a rating agency like Moody's or S&P or somebody comes along. They give you a rating.
We want to beat Moody's to the punch on this one. But,
right, so that would be potentially your competition, somebody in
we're defining what it means to be the Deloitte or Bain of this space. We've added penetration testing. We're doing penetration testing of exchanges, wallets, websites, building an institutional grade multi-sig wallet for Bitcoin and Ethereum. We built a Telegram bot to find phishing scams, hosting bug bounties. anything cybersecurity and blockchain, we're trying to dominate this space.
Okay, fair enough. Let's go to Alena Vranova. So tell us a little bit about Trezor and Satoshi Labs.
So first of all, I'm a business developer and advisor. Been working in the financial and fintech area for over 15 years now. In 2010, I got into Bitcoin and then co-founded Satoshi Labs, which is a company dedicated to innovations in the space. So Satoshi Labs is behind maybe two or three pivotal changes in the space. The first was the first Bitcoin mining pool that was launched by my business partner in 2010. Then we launched coinmap.org. That was the first map where you could find merchants that accepted Bitcoin. And then 2013, we actually started Trezor, a project to create a hardware wallet that was not present, as a way to allow people without any computer skills to manage their Bitcoins in a safe and easy, user-friendly way.
Right. So in some degree, you are kind of in the same space as Jeremy in terms of hardware wallets, a little bit, somewhat.
They complement each other.
Compliment each other. Okay. We'll get into
Casa
that.
is using hardware wallets as the key provider. So basically right? So Casa is the interface that does prepare all these multi-signature transactions and the processes, while the user has his Trezor and he signs the actual approval of the transaction with his Trezor wallet.
Got it. Okay, so last but not least, we have Jose Rodriguez over at Bitso. So it's the biggest exchange in Latin America now. So
Yeah,
what's the update? What's
right
going on?
now we have over 500,000 customers, mostly Mexican. And we started as a Bitcoin exchange versus Mexican pesos. Right now we have 9 order books. We have Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin. And we are adding ERC20 tokens, Mana, Golem, True USD, and VAT. And we opened in 2014. We've been working for over 4 years. And what we're developing right now is different products that customers have asked us for. We just launched our debit card, so you'll be able to spend any cryptocurrency or Mexican peso anywhere in the world, because that is something that right now you have to wait for someone to accept your Bitcoins or Ethereum or Ripple or any cryptocurrencies for them to accept payments. With this, you can pay anywhere where you have Visa or MasterCard in the world, so you'll be able to pay. We are opening an institutional sales part in which we'll be doing OTC trading, more oriented to more traditional investors, and we use technologies similar to what has been discussed here to keep safe all the funds, because some people call us or some people see us as their banks. So there are people that do not take their money out of Bitso anytime. So they have their pesos there, they have their cryptocurrencies there, and they see us as their actual banks, although we're not a bank.
Right. So to get back to my point earlier about exchanges, exchanges going back to the Mt. Gox catastrophe of 2014. And there's been many subsequent and problems before and after. So it's often said that the exchanges are the weakest link in the whole crypto space. You guys are doing an excellent job and haven't been any problems. But what's your approach to security?
Yeah. So up till now, our risk area has started doing some research and have found that over 70% of exchanges all around the world have been hacked at least once. Fortunately, up till now, no, we haven't been hacked, but every day we are a target. Every day there are phishing, there's social engineering, there's people trying to penetrate even our communication channels, anything that they want for them to get access to the funds. So as we have all this custody of the funds, we have to have various different procedures and technologies like the ones that have been told here, cold storage. We have an intermediate storage. There also has been just passed fintech law in Mexico, which is, I think, the first fintech law in the world. So besides our security and our internal security and our audits and our reports and processes that we we started working as a auto-regulated financial institution, although we weren't one, because we were looking that law was something that was going to happen. Besides all the crypto security, also in the fiat and peso security, we're going to be having process of securities and segregation of funds similar to a stockbroker, for example.
Okay, so just a follow-up to that, you mentioned regulation and regulators. Do you see, at this stage of the game, do you see regulators as coming in as a positive? In other words, they're bringing some ways for you to exist in an otherwise pretty wild world? Or is the attitude still of that kind of cypherpunk, all regulators are not welcome type of thought?
No,
How do you come in on that?
Most of the law is to protect the customer, because customer had problems and they didn't know where to go. Are we a financial institution? Are we a regular company? Are we a custody company? So they didn't know where to go. So there's a lot in the law about protecting the actual customer. There are also some things that they want to audit us as if we were in financial institutions. So now we are gonna report, for example, to the Mexican IRS, to the Mexican SEC. So, and they're gonna look at their processes. They're gonna go inside the company, like if we were opening a stockbroker, for example. So part of it is of the law is to start a little friendly. So for us also to know how we are gonna how we are gonna communicate and how we're gonna do business, for example, with already regulated entities. So something very funny that happened is after they passed the law, we had problems opening bank accounts beforehand. After the law passed, magically we had like 20 banks looking for our business, because it's a big business. We are managing all this people's money and all the company's money.
Right, so it's like for like. They're regulated. You've got similar regulations, so you guys can do business.
Yeah.
All right. So on the regulation front, Jeremy, what are your regulatory challenges in terms of security and regulation, and how those two intersect, to keep it on the security theme?
Sure. So we're unique compared to some other companies in the space, because we do put the onus of managing most of the keys back on the user. That is the way that Bitcoin was originally designed, was for you to manage your keys directly. And we rely on Bitcoin's security. And using multisig, which is built into Bitcoin, it's just really hard to use yourself manually. So the way we think about regulation is, we're not a custodian. It's a non-custodial solution. You're holding the funds yourself. A lot of the existing custody laws don't apply to us. We're effectively a software provider to the end user. But we do provide a single key that is an account recovery key that if you have, that you can use in combination. Our system's a 3 of 5, which means you need 3 signatures out of a total 5 keys. So we're providing support to the end user, but not full control, full custody. The end user is actually the one that's custodying the asset. And so we are in a unique position around the regulatory side. But the reason why we're doing that is specifically because it's actually the most secure. If you attack an exchange directly, I would not want to be in the situation of BitMEX, of any other exchange in the space. It's very hard to manage security around a centralized exchange. You do a phenomenal job. It takes one attack, and you've got a lot of the private keys there. So by spreading and holding your at least your long-term funds, if you want to do active trading, it's great to be on exchange. But for your long-term funds, you want to hold them offline. You want to hold them in your full control.
Actually, I want to go to that in a bit about Bitfenix, because in the normal space of banking industry, they have a deposit insurance and basically the U.S., the entire police force and FBI to go after culprits for them. Bitfenix did come up with an interesting solution when they were hacked, but we'll get into that in a bit. I want to talk to Hartej and Alena first, and I'm going to go back to the OG original sort of Bitcoin before any sort of security, before cold wallets, really. I mean, you could do a cold wallet if you had, if you were technically proficient. But tell us the story about how you were, you had slush pool, you had the mining, the mining pool, and what happened to the hack that led you to develop.
By that time, it was run by Slush purely.
Yeah.
The problem there was Slush pool was using a server house in France, where the employees of the server house figured out that there's actually a Bitcoin mining pool running on their servers.
Wow.
And that's what happened. And at that time, I think it was a couple of thousand Bitcoins that were gone. and Slash luckily at the time was able to cover it from his own pocket. But that's something that you may not see or expect from the service that you're using. So I'm quite on the other spectrum of the opinion to when it comes to regulation. If I may come shortly back to the topic, as I worked for insurance companies and banks previously to Bitcoin, I've gone through a lot of like extremely regulated topics and implemented a lot of new regulation and new directives to protect the customer. The result of all this endeavor to protect the customer was that the entire market halted for 1 year or 2 years because they've been implementing all these new regulations. And in the end, the customer was there to sign, like, instead of 8 papers, 30 papers, and guess what? They didn't read it. So the entire regulation is just to like clean your hands and say we've done our best to protect the customer. The insurance that any company would have is always limited to a certain amount, so it doesn't cover your crypto. And I want to see the insurance companies that are able to just calculate the risk for crypto that's up and down with the value, so you can insure 500 million worth of Bitcoin that tomorrow may be $1 billion. So Bitcoin was designed as private money. And if you follow the original design, you're safe. So Casa does it great. Casa just distributes the risk towards the end user, and the risk is tackled on the side of the end user by a hardware wallet. And that's the way that in my opinion most of the companies should follow in this space to be safe themselves.
I liken it back to like a Clint Eastwood film. Clint Eastwood's entire career is based on individual economic sovereignty. When you used to have your gold and you had to carry it and you had to protect it, and it was just you out there in the West, and you just had to basically look like Jameson Lopp with a gun walking around. So that's what it is hard work, especially once it's substantial amounts of money. It's kind of stressful to think like, oh, I just want to go put this in a bank.
Well, before Clint Eastwood, there was Humphrey Bogart and the treasure of Sierra Madre.
Sure.
It's about gold. And remember, in the end, it all blows away. Now,
Oh,
had they
yes.
had Casa or Trezor, they would have kept their gold.
Yeah.
That's the moral of that
Exactly.
story.
As long as they kept the seed, that's another level of the security. But now I want to move to Hartej Sawhney, because this is another, cut to 6-7 years later, and Bitcoin's well over $1,000, and it's become a big multi-billion-dollar industry. And then we saw the eruption of all these smart contracts. Ethereum is, the second biggest coin in the world, and everybody knows about that. You might not have heard of the DAO. When this was the smart contract, the first distributed autonomous organization, and it was supposed to be the code is law. It doesn't matter what else. There are no regulators here. There's nobody to go crying to. The code is law. And then, somebody figured out how to make that code, give them all the money, drain all the ether, and the solution was a hard fork after that. But tell us about how it's evolved since the DAO, the whole smart contract space.
So basically, we saw an insane number of companies start to write smart contracts to take advantage of the fundraising mechanism that is an ICO. And so everyone started rushing to figure out that if we can avoid Silicon Valley and going up and down Sand Hill Road, there's this thing called an ICO. You have to take advantage of a decentralized application, invent a reason to have a token. There's this blockchain called Ethereum. This blockchain called Ethereum has a new language called Solidity. So now you're trying to hire engineers that can code in this new language called Solidity. Engineers, let's side note here, engineers who know how to code really well in Solidity are too rich to get out of bed.
That's a big problem. That's another part of the security issue.
Now, if you find cybersecurity experts who have a QA mindset, they don't know Solidity at all, and the learning curve is kind of high. And the rush in the ICO space, the rush of smart contracts that we were then auditing were written by basically ex-web developers, even for very sophisticated projects who raised millions and millions and millions of dollars. And many of these projects go on to then be listed on exchanges, and many of these exchanges, at that time at least, prematurely, were not checking to see if they've been audited. At least in Asia, this is still happening a lot more than I think it should be. Exchanges blatantly just not checking for an auditing report, or now, today we had a meeting with an exchange, Huobi, who said, we're auditing the contracts ourselves. We would love to give you some of the work. We're drowning. We're like, how about you shut down that department? This is all we do. We have a team of DEF CON. DEF CON's the best white hackers conference and black hackers conference in the world. And it happens in Vegas, and we're based in Vegas. We have about 40 employees there, and we just keep recruiting and pulling them in from DEF CON. All these badge winners.
But you bring up a really important point, is that there are thousands of coins and projects and tokens now, and there's like a handful of engineers, and none of these projects are secure.
Yep.
The reason why Bitcoin is so secure is because of all the smart devs and engineers that work on it and keep it secure, and the miners. And so what do you feel about that? Is there enough security? Are there enough engineers to keep these tokens secure? There's
a need for academies to be built. That's literally every major company that I talk to this week is consensus week. So I'm in an abundance of communicating with my fellow colleagues who have all the same problems. Everyone's saying we can't hire fast enough. And every single engineering team is essentially building in-house academies.
How does an investor even, who are these people investing? Is there any sort of rating system to even know who the tech team is on a project?
From our perspective, we're building an API where you can look up the name of an ICO and transparently get a link to the audit report. Building the API is not the hard part. It's getting other auditing firms to give us the data.
Yeah.
And right now, before we even get to that, we're trying to define between a couple of cybersecurity firms what is a smart contract audit. Because what we consider an audit is not what other people consider an audit. And you have someone in someone's basement saying, well, I contributed to Ethereum's blockchain, and I want to audit the code, and what is an audit? And so there's some clarity needed. And so to piggyback on what Alena was saying, in my personal opinion on regulation, at least where I look at it is, I think rules are better than no rules. So Russia is a great example. Russia has not made any clarity on what is law and what is not law. There's not one Russian ICO that has happened by Russians that they're still in Moscow or St. Petersburg. They all took a one-way flight as soon as that money hit a tracer. They haven't been back.
Yeah.
And I go to conferences there. They're inviting me to the World Blockchain Summit. And I'm just like, where are the Russian ICOs? The list of people that I know. And they're like, he left a long time ago.
Very good accent.
Yeah. And the thing is that if Russia were to make it clear on, maybe they were to say, we have these Russian exchanges. If you want to list on these exchanges, the smart contracts must be audited, and here's the firms that we think are legit cybersecurity firms.
Yeah.
This is what Malta and Gibraltar, we're talking to those governments. They'll be the first that we speak to about this type of regulation. This is a type of regulation that I'm okay with.
Yes. Now, did you have something to say?
Yeah, also too, it's confusing and it's problematic that we're coming from a world of web developers to where Facebook had this mantra of move fast and break stuff. That was the mantra of their engineering team, is move as fast as you can, hack as fast as you can, we'll just fix it as we go along. Well, when you're dealing with people's life savings and they're trading money, you can't do that. And
if a smart contract gets hacked, it's not data, it's actual money.
Yeah.
Money gets stolen. And when you're talking to publicly traded companies now, that's the biggest tide that's turned in this history of smart contracts. Long story short is, now we're seeing a shift. We're seeing sophisticated, publicly traded companies say, we want to write functional smart contracts that cut out white-collar middlemen, and about $10 million will flow through this smart contract every 24 hours. And the stakes are really different, our pricing models are really different, and one security vulnerability, money gets stolen, not just data. When Home Depot's point-of-sale system got hacked into, I don't think anyone gave a shit. Because now when one smart contract gets hacked, you're going to have everyone saying, we lost money.
Yeah, I know, and then it extends over to the Internet of Things. Just last week I caught my refrigerator stealing from my coffee maker. And, it was really bad. I had to unplug them both.
Now, there are two other topics relating to security I'd like to talk about is, after you die, securing your assets for those who will inherit the assets. a good friend of ours, Matthew Mellon, just recently passed away. He was from a very wealthy banking family, but he also became a billionaire in his own right from investing in Ripple. He died in Cancun, and there were many stories about his family trying to find out where he put his Ripple, and they knew he had $1 billion worth, and where is it, and trying to find it. Now, Casa has some sort of solution for that in particular, correct?
Sure. So one of the problems in this space is if you are managing your keys, you're doing it frequently on a device like a Trezor, and these devices have been built to hold one key. You generate one key, you can generate several public keys off of that, and then you can generate a series of addresses beyond that. But it's down to a single device. The devices are built to be small and have a single private key
Master private key.
for strong security reasons, right? But doing something like multi-sig is not built into the system. And if you want to do end of life, if you want to transfer funds, you have to share the passcodes, you have to share the information on that device with someone you know. Say it could be a lawyer, it could be a family member, and then that in turn presents its own security vulnerabilities because now that person, whoever you've shared the information with around your single key, could be attacked themselves. There's also incentive if it's a lot of the hacks that have happened have in turn we found out they've been inside jobs. So there are these pressures to where do you want to put the pressure on your lawyer if he knows that you have $1 billion in Ripple and he's the only other person in the world that knows the passcode to that? And then he happens to tell another family member, and then someone else finds out.
This is going back to a Humphrey Bogart film.
It is. It's complicated. It is the Wild West.
Yeah.
So the way we approach this is using multi-sig. We are one key holder of the 5 keys, and we will have a validation process where we check. You can come in and bring a spouse or a lawyer, or whoever it is, and in an end-of-life process, a process that's very similar to how a bank hands over the contents of a safety deposit box. We will proceed the same way, except we're handing over a private key. You would then store another key in a safety deposit box. You would potentially store one at home. And it's safer to share the information around one of your private keys since you have multiple. And if the person, say your lawyer, tried to leave with a single key of the total 5, they wouldn't be able to take anything.
What happens when, for example, your company ceases to exist?
Well, in that case, because there are 4 total keys that the users hold, they can still get full access to their funds. But it is true that the end-of-life process and the way we've currently designed it does require that the company stays in business. So that is one of the reasons why we've built the business model around a yearly subscription fee, and we are driving a real business around this.
Just quickly.
Recommend something because
What?
If I may recommend something.
Oh, just hijack the whole panel. Go ahead.
Go for it.
Great. There's a new book by Pamela Morgan on crypto inheritance, specifically about this topic. She's a lawyer. She's been in the Bitcoin and crypto space very, very early on, and she's done a lot of publishing, and she consults companies, funds, and so on exactly the processes, how to secure your crypto wealth for these occasions. So it's quite a tiny book. I strongly recommend to read it.
Hopefully you're
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I
Before
would
we do
as
some
well.
questions, I think let's just quickly ask Jose. When you mentioned cold wallets there at the exchange, what's the protocol?
So
If you can even say, because you might be divulging
Don't.
security information. Or maybe can't say? Or?
well, it's like a vault in a bank. You don't want most of your money in the cashier's hand. You want what you will need for a day or 2 days in cashier's hands, or probably in your branches. So what we do is most of the funds have a process to delay the transfer of funds and to keep them safe and to keep them offline. So we have like 3 intermediate vaults there. So we have what is called normally the hot wallet, what you normally get withdrawn in 24 hours by all your users. Then we have another intermediate one in which we could access in less than 24 hours funds and transfer from one to another. And we have the cold wallet in which we use security similar to the one described, in which various participants have to accept the transaction and it's delayed.
So you know on any given day your maximum exposure.
Sorry?
Your maximum exposure on any given day, you know.
Yeah, we know.
And do you get insurance on that?
We are working with insurance companies. We haven't been able to find an insurance company.
That's coming, probably.
Yeah, that's something that we want.
Okay.
It's probably not coming, believe me.
But you
You're,
know,
you're
very hard.
very,
Not on large scale.
very hard.
dubious about the regulators out there, I take it.
I am,
Oh, she is.
and I worked for insurance companies for 10 years.
So your concept of individual sovereignty.
I'm strongly advocating for that. That's exactly what Bitcoin is designed for, and finally something where we don't actually need to be babysit by banks, by other companies, and we don't need to trust them and then be disappointed all over again. It's great to use services such as exchanges, but I would say just use the exchange to make the transaction, take off your money, and keep it safe. That's it.
however, the exchanges still get hacked. They do end up having to transfer money. We've seen that in the last year, the $500 million in NEM stolen from one Japanese exchange, and they happen to have like $500 million in cash on hand to pay off everybody. And then Bitfenix, I wanted to talk about that in terms of, rather than having insurance, they came up with a quite innovative solution when they, maybe you remember, Jose, how much they actually had
There
stolen?
was $70 million that they stole from Bitfenix, and they created a token to repay customers with future incomes. And in less than a year, they repaid to all of their users.
And some, I mean, this Bitfinex, like all these exchanges, by the way, are pulling in so much money. Bitfinex pays dividends all the time, like they're just raking it in. So they
But every time their code changes,
Yeah.
there's room for a vulnerability.
Yes.
And their code changes at each exchange on a daily basis. And so someone has to have a white hat approach, which is what we do now. And we said, let's get a group of 12 engineers to try to hack the exchange like a traditional hacker would, at least quarterly, if not, let's find a way to now monitor the code daily. So now we've had this is an alarm to wake up, guys.
you just slept through the panel.
He's awake.
I literally must have set that on some plane, like wake up. Anyways, what were we talking about?
You were talking about white hacking the exchanges.
Yeah, we've been building a software platform to now monitor their code on a daily basis because groups of exchanges are saying, well, could you actually monitor our code on a daily basis? Is that even possible? So we're inching towards that. But I mean, we're also finding exchanges are putting fluff volume in terms of fake volume that they're putting on how much is being traded. They have all kinds of security holes at exchanges that need to be analyzed. And every time we interact with an exchange, we realize that
They're so lucky they haven't been hacked yet.
Yeah, it's a question of time.
The root problem here, though,
it's a when, not.
And the problem here is it's not just the servers of those exchanges being hacked, but it's more on a systemic level. So the entire internet is just a huge black hole where things disappear and are being rerouted. And just like a couple of days ago, Kevin Mitnick has demonstrated how to break second-factor authentication. So there's a lot of people thinking that they're so safe that they're using a username, password, and a one-time password. You know, this little like Google Auth or something.
Dash.
It's possible to bypass that, to hijack the session and log in and just withdraw.
Because there's
the money.
always some human somewhere that is socially engineered, whether it's on porting the phones. We had a friend, actually, this is not public, but who the person is, but they had like over $10 million stolen from a Bitcoin, some crypto. It had over $10 million stolen about 2-3 weeks ago, and it was social engineering. Their phone had been ported, even though they had told the phone company to lock it down. We're investors in BitPay, and they were socially engineered. They got 3 of the 4 partners to sign off on sending $2 million worth of Bitcoin to somebody who was a high-value client, and it wasn't the client. And so
In cybersecurity, you're reminded that humans are always your weakest link, usually.
Yeah.
And we had a recent case of a spear phishing attack where a woman at this company has a dog that she puts into competitions. And the entire company had social media profiles that were watched by the hacker, and figured out that via Twitter that this one employee is obsessed with dog competitions, dog walking, dancing competitions or something. And
Dog dancing
I don't know.
competition?
I don't know.
It's kind of all
Something
weird
with
stuff
dogs
in
and
the world.
competitions. And so essentially, the hacker made a fake website for this dog dancing competition near her house.
Wow.
And the employee was emailed the PDF. The employee signed up instantly, super pumped. And from that point forward, the hacker could see each keystroke and the entire screen of the computer. Within 24 hours, the hacker breached in and stole about $16 million in Bitcoin.
Oh my God.
And it's like humans are your weakness. And that's what needs to be thought
We have
about.
evidence too that there's definitely some organized crime that's infiltrated some of the telco companies. It's
Especially
not
in the
so.
US,
Yeah,
where you can transport your phone number to another SIM
That's
card
right.
just by making a phone call.
So
I got SIM
with
card
another
swaps.
cybersecurity firm, we've narrowed down that there's definitely, because some logs are being wiped. Some people are having their numbers ported, and then when they go back and do a check internally, they're seeing that some logs are wiped, or there's some other things happening that it's the only way that it could be happening is if it's an
Oh my
inside job.
God.
But I want to point out that the root problem here is that one of the benefits of Bitcoin and of these other currencies is that the transactions are irreversible. You cannot reverse a transaction once it's happened. And that's different than our current fiat system. You cannot insure Bitcoin, or it's arguable whether you can insure Bitcoin once a transaction happens, because there's no way to reverse it. You have to find the person that has that address to recover those specific funds, or you have to pay it out of your own pocket.
It's all you humans' fault.
But also,
Yeah, go ahead.
it's completely traceable.
Yes.
And for example, there have been people that are dumb enough to use Bitso to try to commit crimes. So we have their IDs, we have their IPs, where they have all their information. We have from what type of device they use. We have all this information. And there was this public case about someone that decided to kidnap a person and to ask for ransom in Bitcoin. So this guy was actually one of our customers.
Oh my God.
And he sent a test to the ransom wallet from his Bitso account. So we had all his information. So in less than a week, him and all his team were in jail.
And now he's working for JP Morgan. America's a great country like that. Well, I mean, do we do a couple? Where's the organizer of this shindig? Should we do a couple of questions?
Do you have any questions?
Keep it going. So she's on our third Chardonnay.
Max,
Keep it going. How about it? Yes, sir. Okay. Yes.
Smart contracts and vulnerabilities. Obviously, they'll build the software perfect. You have the hardware attacks as well. So it seems like sharding, multi-part computing, and sharding. Smart contracts.
Sharding smart contracts. Who wants to handle that?
That's
That's Hartej.
that's
It's futuristic. It's I put it in the same category right now as almost automated smart contract auditing. We're not there yet. Right now, where we are is building automated tooling to find vulnerabilities. And the thing is, blockchains are relatively secure. The business logic written upon it is usually not. It's the flaws we usually find are usually not even security flaws. They're logic flaws. Like recently, someone's white paper said they're going to allocate 1 billion tokens, and the actual smart contract only allocated 400 million. You forgot about 600 million tokens. Oops. And so for now, we just need to find ways to build the automated tooling so when we find a vulnerability, finding that same vulnerability is faster and faster and faster. In a couple of years, it'll be pretty close to being automated. It's debatable about the sharding topic.
I would go as far as say too that from our perspective and storing money long term, that as we're looking at Ethereum and we're looking at other smart contract based systems and implementing those, we're actually avoiding smart contracts altogether. We are looking at pushing for implementation of multi-sig direct in Ethereum, which is not implemented in Ethereum today. But there's a case where you could have the logic perfect in a smart contract, but you could have some other bug in the virtual machine, in the Ethereum virtual machine, that could cause this logically perfect code, perfectly buttoned up, to still have some flaw to where you could extract some funds.
This is true, and we've seen this happen.
Yeah, so it is that's not being discussed enough today. Smart contracts are amazing, and there's a lot of interesting tech that's going to be built with them. But people need to pay more attention, one, to just auditing them generally, and then two, thinking about which functions they want to have on smart contract and which functions they want to have totally off that need to be much more secure.
Question, anybody?
No question?
Oh,
Okay,
yes,
there's one.
madam.
Don't ask, I think she's going to ask about the dog dancing. She seemed very interested.
Registration is closed for the dog dancing.
I'm not an expert, but we have a bunch of clients on the West Coast who are casinos. And they want to know about, basically they want to know about everything that you know, and somebody has to download it in like 10 minutes or less. Do you have any advice for a casino who is looking into this? What would you
Call him.
I mean, I live in Nevada. I've thought about this. Tokenized casinos is really exciting, but will the federal government let this happen? I'm not really sure. We haven't even. Yes, it's interesting. So we know that we're close with the Moape, and we know many. We've been talking to the Moape Reservation and about the future of doing a tokenized casino, and tokenizing a casino is pretty exciting.
It's
That's
happening,
cool.
by the way.
It is happening already.
It's
and
happening already. One of the first things I would advise them is just start easy and lightweight, and for example, allow payouts in crypto.
Yeah,
Right, so it's easier for the people not to like.
If you want to know right now what's happening,
wire, just here's my wallet, thank you.
Yeah.
And leave the casino with a couple of millions that you just won in your pocket. That would be a way to start, and maybe then tokenize the casino itself and allow to bet in crypto. And
today, all we have is the D Hotel in downtown Las Vegas has a Bitcoin ATM, and now we have a lot more casinos that have Bitcoin ATMs, and they're gift shops let you pay in Bitcoin. That's as far as we've gotten in Las Vegas. Nothing further than that. I think if that intersection ever happens, I'm not sure it'll happen in the United States and non-Indian territories for a long time.
Well, Supreme Court just opened up sports betting in the U.S. in a big way.
Online sports betting.
Online sports betting. So they're making a move that way. You know, as an economy, as a country collapses, they make legal things like gambling and stuff and prostitution.
There's a company called Blitz Predict that's in Vegas that it aggregates all the odds from Augur and Gnosis and then lets you place one sports bet on one platform.
So when you say your clients, what do you represent? Your consultants?
Yeah, Artemis Cyber is, we provide specialized cyber solution providers that you can trust for whatever your situation is. So one of our partners is Jack Devine, the former head of operations for the CIA, so you can obviously trust him. And we try and find people who know what they're talking about because Mary was speaking earlier, CIOs' brains are exploding from what they have to keep track of, from malware attacks to now all of these 2023 NYCRR 500 GDPR, and then someone says to them, we also need for you to talk about blockchain. And we're going to use that to advance our funds. And that includes casinos. And one of our salespeople has over 200 casinos in the sort of Arizona West Coast area, and they're all starting to wake up to blockchain.
So we're going with the concept that if they're with the CIA, they're automatically trustworthy.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, there's a debate right there, I think. Any other questions?
yeah, sorry to take over, but
No, that's fine. Yes, sir.
coach and advisor.
Yes.
This is a question for all the panelists, and I'm curious to listen to Hartej's answer as well. Is there a SOC for any high net worth individual who is an investor in cryptocurrency?
Is there a stock or a
SOC,
SOC?
SOC, Security Operations Center, where I just get alerts on what's being accessed or what's being an anomaly.
Doesn't exist today.
No.
We are building heavy notifications. That's part of the product. Is anytime there's a signature, anytime, especially there's a request around our key being requested access. I think that's one of the things that is challenging right now around multi-sig and around even just watching the addresses that you know that you have funds on. Is unless your key is plugged in with a lot of the current solutions, you're not seeing the address. So there's a heavy room in doing that thing. lots of improvement that we made.
Have you seen, Hartej, have you seen demand for something like that?
Pardon?
Have you seen demand for something like that?
Demand.
Demand. Have you seen demand for that?
For consolidation of security alerts in
For security solutions built for cryptocurrency investors.
I predict it's coming, and institutional players will want that. I haven't seen the demand uptick just yet. It's not the dust hasn't settled, I'd say.
Well, we're about to wrap up, and please follow us on Facebook and give us a like. If you liked what you saw on this panel,
Or on Twitter.
we'll do it again, and we'll come to your community and do the panel for you in your home for a small sum of Bitcoin or Ethereum or one of the most exciting new cryptocurrencies out there called Sugar, which you'll be hearing a lot more about.
There's also Spank Coin.
So, by the way, yeah, it's cocktail hour. Usually, Max and
Let's
I
not go there.
Max and I have been living in Europe for the
All right,
past.
for the panelists, please. Thank you, panelists.